safe space. We ain't never give a reason you should hide. Compile all your questions, we taking the quest. Join Tarsha on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey Podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and welcome to another journey, another adoption story. You all already know to subscribe, so we're not going to spend a lot of time there. Just go click the button and then tell all your friends, okay? So I'm going to dive right in and introduce our guest this week, Miss Maya. Hi, Maya. She is a fellow adoptee, and she is a same-race adoptee. And I am very excited to talk to her because, like I was saying before we turned on the camera, same-race adoptee, meaning Black children adopted by Black people. You don't really hear about us a whole lot because there's this myth that Black people don't adopt. And they do, because they adopted me, they adopted you, and several other people that I've talked to on this show. So how old were you when you found out that you were adopted?
You know, so that's so interesting. My parents told me throughout my life. So the moment they adopted me, they started telling me.
How old were you
obviously,
when you were
I didn't
adopted?
comprehend what that meant.
How old were you when you were adopted?
I was 3 months.
Okay.
So from birth till 3 months, I spent time in foster care.
Okay.
I was adopted through a Lutheran agency, so it was an official adoption. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, so Midwest. And I was also adopted in St. Louis, and I was born in St. Louis City. So all happened in one city, and I still live in St. Louis today. So yes, I knew all of my life. And, you know, I will say, though, how I processed being adopted changed depending on the stage I was at in my life, right? So as a child, you think about it differently. And then as I became a teenager.
Tell me how you thought about it as
adult.
a child, because for me, I don't know if I would use the word processing. And maybe it was a form of processing and I didn't know. I was just telling everybody.
Right.
I
was too.
Okay.
I think that's my official grown language, saying processing. But as a child, I would tell people. Like when we would have show me tells, and when people would say, tell me a fun fact, I would say, I'm adopted.
I'm adopted. I did the same thing.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's somebody else out there that was doing that.
Yeah.
I know my mom's going to watch this. See, Mama, it wasn't just me.
No, it wasn't. No, it was not. And I'm glad to hear another person that did that as well.
So what would your parents say to you when you were just telling the world, hey, I'm adopted. My name is Maya and I'm adopted. Hi.
You know, they didn't say anything. You know, they allowed me to say it. I will say my parents, my chosen parents, adoptive parents, I use all kind of terms. The thing is, they have never pushed back on me trying to understand my adoption for myself. They didn't push back when I decided to search, which we will get into later, I'm sure.
Okay. Oh, absolutely.
But they never really pushed back. If I got pushback, it was from other people in the family.
Yes. Okay. And now I have two questions.
Yes.
My first question, if you don't mind me asking, roughly, how old are your parents?
Oh, sure. So my parents are in their late 60s.
Okay. I just wanted to see what generation they were from, because that makes a difference.
They're baby boomers.
Okay. That makes a
difference. And I'm a millennial, a younger millennial, but I'm a millennial.
I'm a Gen Xer, so.
Yeah, so you're right. The generation right before us.
And so who were the people giving the pushback and why?
You know, that's interesting. And maybe pushback is a strong word, but like when I decided to search, I had a family member in particular that kept wanting to know how my mother felt about it and kept worrying about how she felt about it. And I'm like, why does that? I mean, however she feels about it, this is not her story. This is not her journey.
That part.
If my parents had been the type that didn't support me, I still think I would have searched. Now, you can be respectful about it. You don't have to, you know, but I think the problem I have with non-adopted people when they make commentary of any sorts is be careful, because this is our journeys. This is our storyline that's incomplete,
Right.
you know.
Ooh, I love that. Our storyline that's incomplete.
Our storyline that's incomplete.
I love that.
And nobody else can understand that unless you have had an experience where you're removed from your family of origin. Now, you may look at it as being removed or not, but you were, you know, and there are pieces of you that as you get older, you're going to start to wonder.
Absolutely.
And I think that's everybody that's adopted.
Okay, so tell me how you process this as a middle schooler, high schooler, teenager.
Yeah. So those were the hardest years of my life. I'm just going to be very honest. That was really the first time in my life where mental health became a struggle for me. So let me give some background. I grew up in predominantly white environments.
Are we the same person?
Yes, we are. So I will give it, I know, right? This is great. I know This is meant to be. This is meant to be. So let me give a little context. So pre-adoption, right? My biological parents both had issues with drugs. Okay. I'm just going to be honest. And they both were just struggling. They were both basically unstable with their life situations. And they both had other kids as well. So I'm the youngest child of both of my biological parents.
Okay.
So once I got adopted, I moved from what would be considered a lower socioeconomic status to a better one, a higher one, because I was adopted to two African American college educated parents. I say this all the time. Anytime you have people of color who are educated, there's a strong chance that they're going to be living in a little higher socioeconomic status.
For sure.
And so, you know, my adoptive father was an engineer, so he made decent money. My adoptive mother, she stayed at home once she adopted myself and my brother. But before that, she had worked in research. And so they were able to provide for me, you know, so I was able to get a good education. I was able to grow up in a decent neighborhood. So with that, though, came isolation, right? Because I was this little Black girl, was exposed to a lot of things. And so my interests were wider than what we may consider normal for Black people,
For sure.
which I don't even like to say that, but
that.
you know.
I get that.
And so that was my first experiences of feeling isolated, I guess, when I got adopted. I just didn't know it was isolation. So when I got to middle school and high school, what's happening around that time? You're developing your identity. You're trying to find your place in the world. You're trying to find your people. I didn't find any of those. I was struggling with trying to figure out who I was because I was adopted. And that was the first time I really understood that adoption is not necessarily a good thing, in that.
See, now I too was trying to find myself. But by the time I got to high school, we had moved into a more mixed environment.
Okay.
And then I think maybe, secondly, I like to say before we moved, Monday through Friday was my white experience.
Yeah.
And on the weekends was my Black experience.
It was your Black
because you're with family, church, all that was happening.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, because by then I'm in a more mixed environment. I'm feeling a little, I don't know how I would have felt had we stayed where I was. That's interesting.
Yeah. And you know, yeah, it's interesting. And the thing is, by the time I got to high school, because I went to a private high school, and the way things work in St. Louis, I mean, I'm sure it works this way in other cities, but private schools tend to be mostly white. You tend to have people that are in higher socioeconomic statuses, and you tend to have the expectation that everybody's going to go to college. Like 98% of my high school class went to college. Okay. So it was hard. And this was, I would say, so, you know, I was in high school in, 2000s, mid 2000s, you know, and so the thing is that I think this was before, you know, social media was really big. And, you know, I think teenagers nowadays are a little more integrated. Right. I'm just being honest. I think I just noticed that they tend to be more integrated. But the thing is that everything was coming into play. I was starting to feel even more isolated because the Black kids didn't want to deal with me because I was too white. The
You're too
white
white
kids
or you're
didn't
not
really want
Black
to deal with me
enough.
because if they would have brought me home, their parents would have probably been like, "Why are you bringing a Black girl home?"
Yeah.
So I never fit in anywhere. And it was a very lonely time. On top of this, I'm really starting to feel like sort of angry as to why my parents couldn't have stepped up for me. I'm just going to be honest. And I didn't say it that way, but I was starting to feel like here I have two people that didn't even know me, were strangers to me, that are doing everything they can for me, bending over backwards, even if they don't have it. And I have two people over here who just couldn't do it. And mind you, I'm a teenager, so this is very immature thought process, but I'm just putting
For
you
sure.
back in that mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
And anger started to come over me because I was like, how could you not do what you need to do for your child or children? Because this was before I knew some stuff that we will get into later.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You got my
But this was a
mind
very hard
rolling
time.
because
Yeah.
I do remember having those experiences with I'm either too Black or not Black enough as a child, as a elementary school student, but I didn't process it the same way how you described it. But I was in elementary, so I'm angry because why don't they want to play with me?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't process it the way you processed it as a teenager.
Right.
Very interesting.
Right.
So now, okay, so you've gone through high school, anger is setting in. And what happens next where you decide, or how long does it take you to decide, you know what, I'm about to start this journey to go
Mm-hmm.
find these people who I know very little about, but I got to figure this out. I need the rest of the story.
Yeah. I would say that journey probably started toward my later teenage years.
Oh, you were young.
Very young, because it was just so prominent to me. I guess I don't know what it was, but it just something came over me as I started to get closer to college age, I guess, just wanting to put together the pieces. Now, I hadn't started searching yet, but it was just going through my mind of, okay, this is something I could do one day. This is something that I probably will do at least before I leave this earth, kind of thing. And that is young, to your point, that I don't think a lot of people that young and that early in their life, if they're adopted, say, okay, I'm ready to search. If anything, they say, I don't want to search.
I wanted to search,
Uh-huh.
but I was not, and I did attempt,
Yeah.
but nothing came of it.
Right.
And I understand now that it just wasn't time.
Yeah.
It wasn't time.
It wasn't time. Mm-hmm.
So when do you have the conversation with your family or your, not family, parents, and say, hey, I think I'm ready to move forward and do this? And what do they say?
Yeah. So I had that conversation, I would say, in my early 20s, like really had it.
You're still young.
I'm still young. I'm still young. I'm still young now. I'm in my late 20s. So I had that conversation and I sat them down. I said, this is something I need to do for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that at that point I was like, it's something I want to do, whether it's tomorrow or it's just something I want to do before I get old.
Right.
Right. And quite frankly, before my parents got old. And I'm talking about my birth parents.
Okay.
Because I just lost my birth mother, which I'll talk about later. But they, again, were supportive of it. And I think they were so supportive of it because, well, number one, they had to go through trainings before they adopted me. They had to do home studies, that process. But then the agency that they adopted me through required all prospective adoptive parents to attend trainings. And some of these trainings they told me that they had to attend were around preparing yourself for if your adopted child wants to search, which I think is good.
That is amazing.
That's a good training.
My parents went through. I'm gonna have to ask my parents. That's one question I don't think I've ever asked. Did they?
Yeah.
But I was adopted in 75.
Yeah.
So this is.
Yeah.
different era.
I was gonna say that was probably before that. They might well they would have been doing home studies.
They did tell my parents to make sure they told me no later than 5 years old that I
right.
was adopted. They did, but I'm gonna have to ask.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask.
And as a mental health therapist in training, I agree with that. That you should tell your child sooner rather than later, for many reasons, for their mental health, but for their just so that you don't build a relationship of lying and mistrust.
Oof.
So I will absolutely give an applause to my adoptive parents because they got it right. They got it right in that they allowed me to explore this part of my life, this part of my story, this part of my identity. And again, I owe that to the training that they took, but I also owe that to them as people, because even though you can go through the training, you still may not want your child to search. So their personalities and how they are, I think they realize that that's a battle that they're going to lose, because they could see that searching was something that was important to me. Maybe even more so than my brother, who he's older than me. He was also adopted, and he didn't talk about it as much as I did or ask questions as often as I did. So they probably saw that, okay, Maya is going to be the one to search because of how I was showing up and asking stuff and really trying to get this side of my story.
So what's the first step that you took? And who did you decide? Was it your birth mother that you decided to find?
Yeah.
First?
Honestly, and this might sound wrong, but I hadn't thought much about my birth father. And that's just, I think, a
It doesn't
reflection
sound
of,
wrong at all.
of our society. So really, it took me a couple years before the search was successful. So the first thing I did was I had registered for this adoption registry. I can't even remember the name of it. And basically, you put your name, if you knew your birth name, you put your birth name, you put your date of birth, and then it's on this database. And essentially, if your birth family goes and puts something in this database, you can be matched. So kind of similar to
Illinois has something very similar.
Something like Ancestry, I guess, where they match you with your DNA.
Hold on, got to access because what you just said. Did you have a different name at birth?
I did. So my birth name was Precious Carter. And I also had a name in foster care, Sydney. Oh. Sydney Bose. So I've had 3 names. And then my name now, as you see, is Maya Holmes.
Huh.
So I've had 3 different names, which is interesting because I never thought about that until I started sharing my story. I always knew that I had 2 different names before I became Maya, but I was essentially 2 different people before I became the person that I'm talking to right now.
Yeah. How you feel about that?
You know what? I'm still unraveling it. You know, I think that a part of me kind of wishes my name wasn't changed, because like a part of me wishes it wasn't changed, and a part of me is like, Maya's a beautiful name. But
it is.
The thing about names, it's such an interesting concept for us, because I think that is the one thing that we can hold on to. For some of us, we feel like our names that were given to us by our birth parents, our birth mother, if it stays and it sticks with us, I guess it's like something that you're holding on to, that, you know, you can say, hey, this is the name that was given to me by my first mother. And again, I didn't think of it that way until I really got active in the adoption community and people started talking about names. And I said, oh, I never really thought of it like that, that names are a big thing for us. Not necessarily negative, but your name, if you know it, is a piece of you.
Did you ever ask your parents why they decided to name you Maya?
Well, my mother really loves Dr. Maya Angelou.
Oh, okay. Is that who you're named for?
That's who I'm named after. And so she chose Maya because she liked.
Okay. So you put your information into this database, and what happens?
No match.
No match.
No success. And again, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's not a common database, and so I'm not Now that I look back on it, I'm not surprised that I didn't get a match. So that was the first thing I tried.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I tried was I wrote a letter to the court that finalized my adoption. Because remember, this was through an agency. So there was a lot of legal,
Right.
tape, a lot of legal stuff involved. And so I asked my parents, do you remember the court that finalized my adoption? They did. So I wrote a letter to the judge or to the court. I don't know if it was to the judge, and requesting identifying information.
Oh, hold on. Wait. Oh, okay. Identifying information.
Identifying.
Proceed. Go ahead.
I did not get identifying. Of course, I got non-identifying information. And I was disappointed, but I didn't want to give up yet. Now, it was a while before I reinitiated the search process again, but I was sort of like, ooh, I don't know what else to do because I didn't know names. I didn't realize that some adopted people do know who their birth parents' names are. I didn't know that. I couldn't go on Facebook and start searching for people because I didn't have names. So I'm always a little jealous when I hear about adopted people that say they had names.
When I did get my original birth certificate, I only had a last name.
Okay.
And even me personally, last name. I never had a first name.
Okay.
At least not on my birth certificate.
Right. It's crazy. So that was the second thing. And so then a couple years passed, and now the COVID year, the 2020, I had connected with this lady who specialized in helping adopted people search.
Okay.
She was a therapist, but she was also an adoption specialist. And so she told me, hey, the laws in Missouri had just changed and you can now request your original birth certificate. So I said, oh, okay. How do I go about it? So she told me to write a letter to our state capitol. And so I did that, requesting my original birth certificate, giving them the same information, my birth name, my date of birth. And I think they wanted either the city I was born in or the hospital, if I knew it.
Okay.
And so I knew the city I was born in. I was born in St. Louis City. And so I sent that off. And I would say about 4 weeks later, I get a letter.
Fast.
That's fast.
It took mine 5 months.
Fast.
That's fast.
I'm going to say.
Hold on. I got to jump in.
Okay.
The day you get that information.
The day I get that information.
How do you, it comes in the mail, I take it, right?
It came in the mail.
Okay. Walk me through that. how you feeling? Your mental, how you feeling?
Girl, I was more nervous to get that letter than I was a college acceptance letter. Because that's the next biggest letter that you get when you're young.
Yeah, right.
But it took me a while to open it.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't even get home. I was sitting in the car and because I had to drive down to my mailbox.
Okay.
I never even pulled off from the mailbox. I was in the car like, what does this thing
say?
Right.
Well, I didn't have to drive to the mailbox. I just walked down the driveway to the mailbox. I was shocked because it came quickly.
Yeah.
And not only did it come quickly, but guess what day of all days that it came on?
Don't tell me it was your birthday.
Mother's Day.
Oh, Mother's Day.
The day before Mother's Day, because Mother's Day is on a Sunday.
Yeah, so Mother's Day weekend.
Yep. And like I said, I'm giving these clues because I'm going to talk a little bit.
Girl, how long does it take you to open this letter?
Listen, I was shaking. I was nervous. I was excited. I was like, oh my God, this is the ticket. This is the golden ticket.
Right. Yes.
It's the golden ticket. And so when I opened it up, it had everything I needed. And I was shocked again, meaning it had my full birth name. It had my mother's name. It didn't have my father's name. It had an address, and it had my mother's date of birth. I did a double take. I was like, wait a minute. This is information.
Yeah.
This is real information. And I would later come to find out that my birth mother had signed a document that said if I wanted to search, she checked yes. So that is why I was able to get all that information. I learned that later on. I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this original birth certificate, like just in all that. It's like, this is my information, and this is my mother's name, and this is my mother. And there was an address. Now, of course, I was like, oh, this address is not valid, because that was years ago. I'm like, she's probably not living there anymore.
Right.
Fast forward a little bit, I come to find out that's wrong. But anyway, I'm looking at this birth certificate, and I'm like, wow. And I just sit there, I look at it, I tell my adoptive parents I got this birth certificate. I was just so excited. And that was really the golden ticket, because that allowed me to get in contact with my family.
So that's my next question. How? Yes. Yeah, we haven't gotten to the we haven't right now. We're focused on the mother side. So what do you do? Do you pick up a phone? Do you eat? Like, do you get searching on Facebook? What do you do?
So I didn't go to Facebook because my mother had such a common name. I didn't think her name is Melanie. Her name is Melanie Carter, and that's a very common name.
Yeah.
So I didn't do Facebook. And she was a little, I figured she wouldn't be on Facebook because she was in her 60s, which now, I'm not saying that people in their 60s are on Facebook, but my mother was
in their 70s and they're on Facebook.
They're on Facebook, but my mother was not on Facebook. So I go old school, and I wrote a letter.
You love writing letters. It's the
third letter I write letters. I write letters. Minutes. I still write checks. I write in cursive. I do it all. So I wrote a letter to that address. And I took a chance. I said, you know what? I'm going to make sure I put my return mailing address so they can return it back to me and it's not laying somewhere. But I'm going to take a chance. And I wrote a letter. And in that letter, I put my initials, my birth initials, and my date of birth. Because I didn't really want to put too much, because if somebody weird had opened it, I don't want somebody to know my information.
Your information. Hold on. I have to ask you this, though. The address, it's in the same city that you reside in or nearby?
It's in the same city.
You're better than me, because I would have been doing a drive-by.
Listen, but see, you know what? But see, the address was in the hood. So I was like, I'm not about to go in the hood and drive.
I would not have gone up to the door. But I would have rolled by just to see if I could.
You know what? I did. I was so close, but then I said, no, I can't roll up in the hood.
No, I get that. I totally get that. Let me just drive by to see what I can see.
But so I wrote this letter, and come to find out, my grandmother lives there. She still lived there. And she had lived there for over 50 years. So, of course, this was the house that my mother grew up in.
Wow.
Isn't that God?
Oh, God.
She was still there. And I will say from the time I sent the letter to the time I got a phone call, because I left my phone number in the letter. I would say that was, again, about 4 or 5 weeks. So very quick.
And they called you?
And one of my sisters and one of my brothers called me. So.
And what do they say?
They said, they picked up that phone. Well, first of all, I almost didn't answer it because it was a weird number. And I was like, what was this? But then I reminded myself that I gave my number to somebody weird.
Right.
I was like, wait a minute, I didn't give my number
weird phone call, right?
I was like, I gave my number out to the public. I was like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. It's so funny, when I put the letter in the mailbox, I was like, ooh, let me turn around, because I don't know where this letter go. But so, about 4 or 5 weeks later, I got a call. And I answered. I said, hello. They said, hello, is this Precious? Because they didn't know my name. I said, yes, this is her. Are you calling about a girl named Precious? They said, yes. They said, I'm your sister. And then the other person said, I'm your brother. I said, what? So I jumped up, started running around the house. My mother said, girl, what's wrong with you? Because I was still at my parents' house. And I said, they just called me. And she said, what? I said, yes, I'm on the phone with one of my sisters and one of my brothers. And they're both older than me.
Okay.
So we were talking. And they were telling me that they had known about me, because remember I told you I'm the youngest.
Right.
So their father, because we have different fathers, their father had always told them about me. And so they had always wondered, where I ended up. And apparently they had tried to search, but they were never going to find me because my name is obviously not
Right.
Precious.
Right.
So that's another reason why I kind of disappointed my name was changed, because I'm like, oh, they could have found me. But anyway.
Yeah.
So they had tried, and it's so funny. My sister had said, you remember back in the day when Oprah found her half sister?
I remember that.
Remember she had a segment on her show. And my sister said, I had watched that segment and thought about you. And that segment, I don't even know how long. That was maybe, 10, 15 years ago?
A long time ago.
Yeah, that's it. And I was just so excited. I was crying, but tears of joy. And they were saying to me, they were telling me how they got the letter. So the letter had gone to my grandmother's house. And this is why I say it's God, that it was meant for me to find them, because my aunt, one of my mom's sisters, had gone to my grandmother's house, to help her out or do some stuff for her. And she had gotten her mail. And my aunt said that when she was handing the mail to my grandmother, a picture fell out, because I left a baby picture so that she could maybe jog her memory. So I wrote the letter, I left a baby picture.
Oh, you were thorough.
And I guess somebody had tried to open the mail a little bit, I guess to see if there was money in it or something, but the letter was a little bit open. So when she was, I guess, picking up the mail, the picture fell out. And she looked at the picture and said, "Ooh, that looks like Robin," who's my oldest sister, because we look similar.
Okay.
As babies.
Okay.
We were both bald-headed, light-skinned babies. She said, "This looks like Robin." So she picked up and she, opened the letter and she saw who it was from. And so this is my aunt. She apparently had called my siblings. So I have 4 siblings. I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. And 3 of my siblings live here in St. Louis. And then I have a brother that lives in Florida.
Oh.
He lives in Orlando. Yeah.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, I did. Yep. So 2 of them had called me, I guess, when they received that letter or whatever. So that was the first day. Then the next day, guess who calls me?
Is it your mom? My
mom. And when I pick up that phone again, it was a weird number, but of course I was picking up.
Now you got to answer all the weird numbers.
So I picked up the phone. She said, "Hello?" I said, "Hello." She said, Is this Maya?" Because I guess they had told her that my brother and sister had told her my name was Maya. I said, "Yes." I said, "Who's this?" She said, "This is your mom." And I kid you not, you would have thought I hung up the phone because it was so quiet, but I was just like,
oh my
gosh. She called me. And, now, and I'm going to try not to cry, but she's gone.
If you want to cry, please cry.
Yeah. And if I could go back to that phone call, I would, because at that time I didn't know that I was going to lose her so quickly, but it was a good phone call. And she called and she said, "How did you find me? And I'm so glad you found me." We were just talking and I told her my process. She ended up talking to my adoptive mom as well. Cause like I said, I was at their house at that time. I was at the house.
That's different.
That's different. Yes. We can talk about that too. But, we were talking on the phone and, she was asking me about how my life turned out. And I told her, I was educated, I had grown up well. Because I was really, now that she's gone and I'm reflecting, I realized that was really the purpose of this all, was for me to be able to find her, to let her know that the choice you made was a good one and that I turned out well. I was educated. I had a head on my shoulders. I was doing well. And this is a big deal because, as I told you, she had issues with drugs. She did not finish high school. She had my oldest sister when she was in 17. So my mother had a rough life. I'm just going to put that out there. I think by the time she was giving birth to me, things were just not good. Things had gotten really bad. And it was either she keep me and I end up in the system, or she, try to do better for me. And she chose to try to do better.
I want to ask you about the conversation with her and your mom,
Yeah,
your two moms.
my two moms.
How
It was
how did
a
that?
beautiful thing to see. It was beautiful to see. And it was beautiful to see because my adoptive mom was saying, thank you because you gave me a daughter that I wasn't going to have. Because my adoptive mom couldn't have kids the natural way, which is why they adopted.
Okay.
It was like my birth mother saying, thank you because you helped my baby. You took care of my baby. And it was a beautiful thing to see because it was like, the two women that are a part of me coming
Together.
together.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's amazing because I just want to say this because this has been commentary I've heard. I still call my birth mother my mother, even though she didn't raise me. She's my mother, and I wouldn't be where I am if she hadn't made the decisions that she made to get
Say
me.
that again. I need that on a shirt
There you go.
because that's my testimony.
Right. I'm sitting over here right now working on 2 master's degrees, trying to become a therapist. I would not be doing that.
Had you been with her?
Because, and I'm just going to say this, and again, this is not me, trying to talk bad about people, but I probably would have had a very rough life if I had not been adopted.
And that is my testimony.
Right. I would have turned out very differently. I could have been successful. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been, but I would have had some hurdles.
I would have had some huge hurdles.
And once I found my biological mother's side, and I'm just focused on my mother's side, I had a new meaning of generational trauma, generational dysfunction.
I think we're the same person. Oh my gosh, we are definitely the same. Our stories line up. So this is crazy. Yeah.
So I talked to my mother, and then a few hours later, my oldest sister calls me. My oldest sister is 45.
Okay.
So
big age gap.
Big age gap, yeah. So that's the one that my mother had as a teenager. So she had her first. And my oldest sister calls me. And she said, hi. I said, hi. And she said, I'm your oldest sister. That conversation was really special because she has 2 daughters.
Oh.
And her oldest daughter, she named after me when she thought my name was Sydney, which was that was my name in foster care.
Okay.
So because my sister was the older one, she knew kind of that I had gone to foster care. She didn't know where I was going after that, but she had known that I was existent, alive, and she knew that I had gone to foster care.
How did she know about your name being?
So I think while I was in foster care, letters were being sent to my biological family, my mother's side, about my whereabouts. And that stopped, obviously, once her rights were terminated. But there were, I think, pictures and letters still being sent about me while I was in foster care. And so my oldest sister thought that my name was Sydney still. So she said, hi, is this Sydney? I said, no, my name's Maya. She said, oh, I thought your name was Sydney. And I said, well, yeah. And she kept saying that. I said, well, why do you think, what's wrong with Maya? She said, oh, well, I named my oldest daughter after you. And my heart dropped. And she said, I named my oldest daughter after you because I wanted you to know that you were always a part of this family. And that just really warmed my heart because I think when I became a teenager and my anger really was just a mask for being sad and disappointed because I was like, why couldn't I have stayed in the family? Because
let me ask you this.
My siblings weren't adopted, huh?
This is a good point. Being sad because why couldn't I have stayed in the family, but then having the realization, if I had stayed in the family, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So that realization wasn't there when I was a teenager because I didn't know all of this. So now that I'm grown, I think there's always going to be an element of disappointment just in general. But really, as I look back on it, I say it wasn't meant for me
to be there. It was meant for me to come back when I came back.
There you go. Because the path that I'm on, and obviously I don't know what's ahead, but I do feel that I would not be on the path that I'm on had I not been adopted. I had to be adopted into a family that was going to be able to support me and give me a foundation, just in life in general. I needed to be somewhere where I was going to get a strong foundation.
Let me ask you about your siblings, if you don't mind. What kind of life did they have?
So My siblings had a rough life. My mother was in and out.
Okay.
You know, she was on the streets. She was off the streets. She was on the streets. And they were raised with their dad. So 3 of my siblings, my middle siblings, have the same dad. My oldest sister and I both have different dads. So the siblings that have the same dad, they all went with him. And so they were really raised by that side of the family. And so I think that's another reason why I was adopted, because my biological father was not in a position to really take me either.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about him in a minute.
I was about to turn the corner because that was a perfect segue to turn the corner.
Yep. So he wasn't really in a position to take me either.
So how long does it take you between finding this side before you decide to find? Well, let me back up. You said that your father's name was not on your birth certificate. Was your birth mother able to give you information about him?
She was. So it was probably about 4 or 5 months after I had met my biological mom's side before we talked about it and really started to search for that.
And what did you do to find? And what did you do to find him?
So one day we were talking, and I said, "Hey, do you know my father?" And she said, "Yeah, his name." She didn't know his last name. She couldn't remember his last name, but she remembered where he lived, or because I guess she had gone to that house a couple times. Because I just want to say they weren't really in a relationship.
Got it.
They were just messing around, and then she got
pregnant.
She got accidentally pregnant. So I am an accident. Let's be clear. And my mother said, "I love you, baby," but I was not trying to have no child. I said, "I don't blame you." So she had remembered the street that he, I guess, was living at the time I would have been conceived. And so they met in treatment. So they both were trying to get clean when they met, and I guess she got pregnant with me. We went one day. She said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to the street." I said, "Mama, we can't be going up and down Black Folk Street, knocking on doors, talking about, I think I'm looking for this man. I think he my daddy." What? We are Black folks. We cannot be doing that. So,
ding dong, hi, I think you're my dad.
And Tasha, it was a hot ass day that day. I will never forget it. She said, "Come on, let's go somewhere." I said, "Come on, let's go somewhere. Where are we going?" She said, "We're going to go try to find your dad." I said, "Huh?"
Okay, so just to clarify for the listeners, the viewers, you're with your birth mom?
I'm with my birth mom. I'm with my birth mom.
Okay, so y'all are hanging out at this point.
Yes, we had been talking, and we were starting to develop a relationship.
Okay. That's so funny. She was like, "Come on, let's take a ride."
Let's take a ride. So we are on the street. She said, "Turn right," and it was the street. We were driving, then she said, "Turn right," there's the street. So I park. I get out the car. I said, "Well, what are we going to do? We going to knock on doors?" I said, "We going to knock on doors."
No, we're not.
I kid you not. The folks on the porch was looking like.
No, they were.
You know how we give that look, like, "What you doing here?" We knocking on 4 or 5 doors until finally one person answers, and she said, "Hey, I'm looking for Greg." Again, she didn't remember his last name, but his name was Greg. They said, "Yeah, they used to live across the street from us," because his family, it was a family house.
Do you see the look on my face?
It was a family house. So of course they weren't living there anymore, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But these people had remembered them. They said, "Yeah, we know them." And so I had a picture. My mom said, "Bring a picture of you so that we can leave it with them." So my mom said, give her the picture. I said, "Okay." So I give her this picture. And of course I had my mask on because this was COVID. She said, "Take the mask off, smile, let them see your face." So I do that. And I leave the picture with these neighbors. And I kid you not, the next day, ding, ding, ding. I say, "Hello." "Yeah." I said, "Who is this?" "This Greg." I said, "Greg, who?" "Your dad." I said, "Oh, okay."
Wait, stop. Time out. So right now we're going off the strength of what Mama said. Okay. And these people, I love us. They wouldn't track them down.
I love us. This is what I'm saying to you.
They went and tracked this man down.
We're going to track this man down.
Excuse me. Oh, God. They went and tracked this man down, and he called you. I'm okay. Proceed, please, because, Lord, I need the rest of this story.
Listen. Yeah. I said, oh, okay. I was searching for you because I think I'm your daughter. You know, now mind you, he's a very sweet man, but he doesn't quite have the...
A little rough around the edges.
Listen. I said, who answers the phone like that? You don't know me from Adam. And you gonna say, hey, yeah, this is Greg.
Your daddy.
And he is my daddy. I will say that. I look just like that man.
Oh. Okay, so maybe this is why he was just like, oh, yeah, that's my daughter.
And that's probably why I got a phone call so quickly. Because I look more like my father's side, more so than my mother's side.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so, I talked to him. He said, okay, I would like to meet you. You want to come over to my house the next day? I was like, oh, okay.
You just look, let me run this down. You taking calls from strange numbers, you knocking on strange doors, and now we're going to go to a strange house.
Adoption will make you do it, because I kid you not, if this was any other situation, my phone would not have been answered. I would not have been going to nobody's house. But when you want to know something, we gonna do it.
You're not wrong.
We gonna do it.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna get on a plane and we're gonna go to meet these strangers.
We're gonna go meet these people that look like you.
That look like you. And some of them even have the mannerisms I have. Okay, so did you went to the house? Who goes with you to the house?
So
Mama,
I go
of
by
course.
Myself. I go by myself.
You went by yourself.
So it was COVID, and my adoptive parents really weren't comfortable being around people because it was COVID.
Yeah.
And then one of my closest friends wasn't available. So I go by myself. And I'm thinking it's just going to be me and my dad talking and meeting. I pull up to that house.
It was a family reunion.
It was Antoine Fisher. In that, it was, so there's 6 of them. So he had his youngest brother there, his second oldest sister, not all of them were there, but his second oldest sister, and my dad's wife. I'm like, I thought I was just meeting you, which I was happy to meet them, but I was so overwhelmed.
Oh, for sure.
Because I wasn't expecting that. So I walk into the room. Hi, I'm your uncle. Hi, I'm your aunt. And this is your aunt. And that's your uncle.
Look at her. Ooh, she looked just like Greg. Ooh, look at, yeah.
Oh my God. They like, and his sister was like, that's your child. You can't deny her.
Yeah.
Look at that face. Because we have this long kind of face. Like, look at that face and look at that. I was like, where am I? Saying to myself, what did I do? What did I just do?
Oh my gosh.
But honestly, I could not deny them because I look like those people.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
These are my people.
We are having the same storyline because I look just like my father's side of the family.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Identical.
Mm-hmm. You've seen the pictures that I've posted of me and my sisters.
I did. Yes, you do. You look
just like those girls.
And so it was just amazing to me because, so I will say this, my biological father's side is much larger than my biological mother's side. So just to level set, my biological mother only has 2 sisters, and my grandmother never got married. So it's just the 3 of them. And my mother had the most amount of kids. Her 2 sisters each had 2 kids. So it's a very small family. Okay. Versus my father's side, there's 6 of them. He's the 5th. All of them have kids. Of course, my father has the most.
And also still in St. Louis.
So one of them does not live in St. Louis. But yes, the others do. So they all have kids. And then, of course, there's cousins and, stuff like that. So it was a much larger family.
Okay.
And a little more family oriented than I will say my mother's side. Yeah, and they just, it was a true Antoine Fisher moment because they were very much like what I thought my mother's side would be like of this is your aunt and this is your uncle and this is that and you look like my mother's side wasn't as much like that. And I'll tell you why I think that was. But they were very much, they embraced me, but I was almost like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait. So I, talked to him, started to get to know him, started to get to know the family. And that following year, let me think. Yeah, that following year, around this time in August, they had a family reunion.
Oh.
So they called me and they said, hey, we would really love for you to come so that you can meet other people. And so I said, oh, okay,
You might as well. You already went to the house.
I didn't already gone to the house. I was shocked. I didn't answer the number. I didn't,
you might
left
as well.
my picture with somebody random.
Some random people.
Like if somebody come stalk me or come kidnap me, I'm gonna know why.
Because you've been leaving information everywhere. Writing letters.
Oh, Jesus. As I'm saying it now, it's crazy, but we do what we got to do. When we want to know something, we will do what we got to do.
We will do it. So do you go to this family reunion?
So I go to the family reunion. Again, it was in the summer. It was around this time. And again, I was overwhelmed because now it wasn't just him and his siblings. It was some of the cousins. It was people's spouses. And it was a beautiful experience, but then I felt salty. I'm gonna tell you why. They were so family oriented and loving, and we are a family where we love each other, we care for each other. Just this thought came over me, but you didn't show that love for me. And I'm gonna tell you why that thought came over me, because I was looking at these pictures and these family albums and just learning about the family history and then just seeing their dynamics, how loving they were. And just before I knew it, just the thought came over me of, wow, I wasn't a part of this. And I think that came over me.
Let me ask you this. Did he know?
Did he know I felt that way?
No, did he know about you? Did he know what happened?
Right. So that is, the answer to that, I think, is no.
Okay.
I think he did not know about me until it was time for him to sign with his rights, because the way my adoption worked is both of my parents had to sign away their rights. So I think I was in foster care for a long time, for longer than my mother wanted me to be, because they had to track him down and they had to get him to sign paperwork. So the longer he didn't sign, the longer I stayed in foster care. But I do not think he knew about me, because remember, he also too had his own struggles with substances at this time. So I feel like she may or may not have gone to him and say, hey, I'm about to have a child. And he may or may not have said, oh, okay. He didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Until you really had to think
about it. Sure.
And so that's why I was saying to you that unlike my siblings on my mom's side, my father was not available for me to go to be raised by, right? Because he was doing his thing. He was in the streets.
Yeah.
And so, as I'm just getting to know them more and being around the father side, I'm just feeling like, man, they're so loving. They're so family oriented. They're so hoo-ha-ha. And I'm like, what happened?
Right.
What happened when I came?
But let me ask you this, though. Now that you met this side of the family,
right?
Do you feel like you still would have been on this path in life, or do you still feel like you needed to be where you were to be set up?
I do think. Now, I will say to you this, though. My father's side, if I had been raised by them, I still think I would have turned out this way, because they are a little more, not just stable, but there's more education. There's more professionals, right? They got degrees, you know what I mean? So it would have been a slightly different dynamic, I think, if I had been raised by my father's side, because there's more of them too, right? So yes, I do think it was meant to be, but if I had gone with them, I don't think I would have had as rough of a time. This is just my guess. Okay.
Sure. That's all we can do is speculate.
Right. That's all we can do.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
So, I think And this is not an indictment on their characters or actions. I think it's more just of how I was seeing it at that time. Of there was 5 of you, and one of my aunts has said to me that she was going to come get me, and whatever happened, she didn't. And again, at that time when she said that to me, of course I was like, well, why are you saying that to me now? I'm a grown woman. Like, you can't come get me now.
Right.
But as I have matured and I realize what it is I say, you didn't come get me, because the reality of it is when you're raising somebody else's child, you're always going to have to deal with that parent.
For sure. And
I love my mama. May she rest in peace. But I do not think people were going to want to have to deal with my mama. And especially on my mother's side. Because, again, like I said, she had 2 sisters. And so I was looking at them at one point of like, hey, why didn't you come get me? But they didn't come get me because they didn't want to have to deal with my mama.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask you this. I'm going to turn another corner.
Mm-hmm.
How long after you met her, did she pass away? So
she passed away last year.
Okay.
Around this time, in June, actually. And I had known her for 3 years. So it was a very short time. And, this podcast is so interesting because my life has changed so much since the last time I've done a podcast episode. And God had his hand on this because I was able to locate her so quickly. The process, once I got my original birth certificate, right, once I got to that step, it moved quickly. Mm-hmm. Because I think time was ticking. And if I had waited till now to find her, I would have been had a very different story. I will say that this last year has been hard. And it's been hard because there's so many emotions. I wish that, I could have had more time with her. I wish that I could have seen her at her healthiest, because I will say when I met her, she was struggling, and that was hard to see. So yes, her and I were developing a relationship, but she was still kind of on and off the streets a little bit. Okay. And she passed away from cancer. And so to be honest with you, I think she had cancer at that time. It just hadn't gotten bad yet. And she didn't know that she had cancer at this point. But when I met her, she was not necessarily at the best place in life. And so that was hard to see as well, because I had thought that maybe she had gotten to a better place. Mm-hmm. She was living with one of my sisters in her basement. And it was hard because she was happy I was there. She was happy I found her, but she couldn't really connect with me the way I thought she would be able to, because she still had her demons, right? She still had her struggles. She still had the generational trauma. Little do I know it now, but that was training me for the career that I'm about to enter, which is mental health therapy, social work type stuff. But the thing is that when you don't deal with things, they just keep manifesting, and then you repeat patterns.
When you don't deal with things, they just keep manifesting, and then you repeat patterns. I love that. Yeah. Somebody needed to hear that.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch back to my biological mother's side. So there was a pattern of not being raised by your mother. So my grandmother wasn't raised by her mother.
Maya, when I tell you we have the same story.
I'm telling you.
The same story.
Yep. So my grandmother wasn't raised by her mother. So my mother didn't raise her kids. Now, I will say my aunts did raise their kids. Okay. And my aunts, so they might be a little closer to your age, because one of my aunts was born in 1969 and the other one was born in 1970. So they're
a little older than me.
Okay, they're okay. Mm-hmm. So they were 10 years younger than my mom, so they probably had a different version of my grandmother.
Gotcha.
Than my mom had.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So my mother didn't raise her children.
Yeah.
And my siblings struggled because of that, and me in some ways, which is interesting. I look at it and I say to myself, it really hurts me, because I will just say that drugs ruined the Black family, and I'm specifically talking about crack, because that's what my mother struggled with. So by the time I came along, people talk about the crack epidemic as being in the 80s, but I think it was both 80s and 90s. I was born in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
I agree with you.
it was bad by the time the 90s
Super
came.
bad. It was very bad.
So my mother was worse off than when she had my siblings because she wasn't deep into it, her addiction as much yet. And especially with my oldest sister, the one I told you that's 45, she got to experience our mother before she was really addicted. If you think about it, So I've had a hard year, I'm going to be honest, because she died so quickly. I found out she had cancer in November. She was gone by June, and she declined quickly within that time frame. I mean, it was so much going on. She died, and a month later, I started grad school. So much has gone on in my life just in this last year. I didn't think I would grieve as hard as I am, but I am. Because I feel like I've lost her again.
Yeah.
Even though my life would have been more rough, even though I was blessed to have the life I have, she's still my mama. And a part of me just, I woke up the other day and I woke up and I said, I wasn't ready for you to go, but I felt like but she was tired.
Yeah.
She was tired. And when I had met her, I could feel and see it in her body that she was tired.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I didn't want to see that because I just wanted to pick up from where we left off. But that's not how life works. It's gone. And I'm hurting because I wish I could pick up the phone.
And be like, hey, girl, let's go knock on some more random doors.
I know. I'm like, I'm doing all these amazing things in my life. And I wanted her to be a part of it because she missed so much in my life. But I know I have a guardian angel now.
For sure. What I like to say, because I, again, experienced something very, very similar. And what I like to say, because I lost my birth father right after I met him. And I just thank God for allowing me to share time and space that I never thought that I was ever even going to have. And so that's what helps me. I got to think about it that way. And then I still have the rest of the family as well. I have siblings, so that helps me. My last question for you, especially being that you are entering into the field, what would you say to any wants to walk on this path and go and find, or they don't want to find, or they're feeling some type of way about themselves? Put on your counseling hat and speak to the people.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good question. Number one, if you're going to be on this journey, get into therapy, because you are about to be on the most up and down, left and right, back and forth roller coaster ride of your life. Because I had never experienced so many different emotions at one time until I started my reunion process, even the search process. And so you need a space to release that, and a space with somebody that's not your family, not your friends, not your spouse. You need to release it to somebody who's a professional, but also you just need a space to release it without hearing a lot of judgment or opinions. That would be my first thing. And then the second thing I would say is allow yourself to feel what you want to feel. See, because what I was doing was when I would get angry, I'd say, oh, but I need to be grateful. No, if I need to be angry, let myself be angry. If you need to feel sad, let yourself feel sad. You can still be grateful. You can still feel like you're blessed. But if you need to be sad, be sad. You have to feel the emotions, because that is how you heal.
Please say that again. Say that again.
You have to feel the emotions so that you can heal. Because I was not feeling the emotions, and now I'm trying to feel them and heal. And healing is a journey. I don't believe healing is like, okay, I've been healed at 2:00 on Tuesday afternoon. No. Okay. But now that I'm becoming a facilitator of healing, but also someone who's on a healing journey myself, you have to just let yourself go on the process. because there are days when I'm so excited, and there's days that I'm crying on my couch because of this and that, or I'm crying on my couch because my mother couldn't be what I wanted her to be, or my father couldn't be what I wanted him to be. I needed to feel that, and then I would go back on my healing journey. So think of it like you're on a train. The train goes for a little bit, then it stops at the stop. Let the train stop, and then you go back and you keep moving, and then you have another stop. Let it stop. And it's liberating, it's scary, it's frustrating, it's all in between. But I feel like this adoption journey is a lifetime journey. My age, you still going through it. At your age, you're going through it. At people who are 60 or 70 are going through it. It is a journey until you say goodbye. I'm just going to be honest. And I think in life, we think, okay, we're an adult, we've become successful, we have our careers, we have our families, we have this and that. Your success will not outdo your traumas. I don't care how much money you make, the career you have. I don't care what you've made of yourself. Your trauma's going to be there. And until you get on that train and let it stop and start and stop and start, you're going to keep repeating something that you don't want to repeat. And that's how generational curses continue, trauma, dysfunction, because we think that we can outsmart our trauma. But that's not how it works. You cannot do that.
And on that note.
And on that note.
Oh my God. Whoo, girl, you just dropped some, as my oldest son would say, you just dropped some bars.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank you for sharing your incredible journey.
Thank you.
I have felt all kinds of things talking to you, from holding back my own tears till laughing till I could not breathe.
Yes.
And give me 1 second. Don't leave me. And on that note, and until next week, bye, family.
Journey on. You need a pie with the good. Oh yeah, what's the one?